The two-day 47th GST Council meeting ended just half an hour ago. It was a two-day session, and it was a two-day session. Is it all right now? And in fact, I expected it to run till about 5 or 6 o'clock. It did conclude earlier than expected. But it did conclude earlier than expected after having finished all the agenda, which was on the table, and also one extra agenda which came in. This is after 6 months of the last meeting. The last one was on 31st December, but on a specific agenda, I think, on textiles. But otherwise, we had the earlier meeting only in September, and post that, this is the regular meeting. And that is one of the reasons why, because there were so many things that we had done in between, we had scheduled it for 2 days. In a way, the highlight of these 2 days meeting was that we could consider, discuss, and take a decision on 4 GOM reports. So I've been watching very keenly the media reportage before today. Your focus was probably on just one, or probably lately on the second as well, but the third and the fourth probably didn't draw your attention. So this GST 47th meeting, spread over 2 days, really did justice for the good work that the group of ministers have done on 4 different matters. So I'll quickly highlight the 4 GOMs, which essentially were the core business agenda before us. And there were other few things where some detailing had to be done on certain decisions which were taken earlier. So all that has been handled in this 2 days. Even before I start, I want to highlight the fact 3 administrations were together in holding this: the Union Territory of Chandigarh, Government of Punjab, and also Haryana, which was also indicated by the fact that last evening the dinner was hosted by the Chief Minister of Haryana for the entire GST Council and its Secretariat staff. This afternoon's lunch was hosted by Punjab's Chief Minister. And Chandigarh, the Union Territory, has been actively engaged in coordinating between the 2 administration and also with us. So I would want to mention here and a word of appreciation for the excellent coordination the 3 of them had among themselves, and the way in which we had a very smooth 2-day GST meeting. So thanks entirely to the 3 administrations which worked together, and it was like a breeze. So that's a very big note of appreciation for all the 3. Now, the 4 GOMs, which I want to highlight before you first flag it off, then I can get into the details. Revenue Secretary also can come into it. The 4 GOMs which were discussed relate to one which has now become popularly known as Rate Rationalization Committee group, which was headed by the Chief Minister of Karnataka, which also looked at not just rate rationalization, it looked at exemptions, it also looked at correction of inversion. And in yesterday's and today's meeting, it was the inversion, meaning the correction of inversion, and exemptions that was taken up. The rate rationalization aspect of it, which is the third point of that GOM, has not yet been taken up. And for that, the GOM has been given an extension of time. So that is about that GOM. The second GOM related to the betting, gambling, casinos, horse trading, horse racing, and lottery. So they have gone into the details. Chief Minister of Meghalaya was the chair of that GOM. They've also submitted. So the 1 minute. So the first one, where of the 3 items, only 2 was tabled, called that report, although on the 2 it was final. The third one, they needed an extension. So on the 2 where they submitted the report, the committee of Chief Minister Bommai called it an interim report, but that interim report pertained only to these 2, where the findings and recommendations were final. So it called itself interim because that one aspect was yet to be taken up, for which they've got a separate extension. The second one, which is Conrad Sangma's group, which looked into betting, gambling, and so on, gave its report on all the 3 which it considered: the casinos, the online gaming, horse racing, and they gave a final report. And on that, there were discussions. I'll come to what happened after that in a minute. The third group of minister is on IT related and technology related matters, which was headed by uh, Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. They've also submitted their report. They've gone into great details about what are the kind of corrections that the system can do, how to improve. I'll give you the details a bit. So that was the third GOM. The report has been given. And the fourth GOM, about which probably not much of attention was paid, is about movement of precious metals, particularly gold, which was under discussion for quite some time. Kerala's finance minister was the head of it, and that report has also been tabled, discussed. So on the 4, there were elaborate discussions spread over these 2 days. And the recommendations given on the items 1 and 2 of the Bommai committee have been accepted, and those decision specifics will also be covered under the detailed press note for you, elaborated. 1 or 2 things which we'll highlight to you now. The second, the one pending of theirs will be obviously given more time. They will be taking it up again, so that the exemptions and the inversion correction has been in toto accepted, and they will be implemented. The details I'll share with you. The second was the Conrad Sangma on online gaming and also on horse racing and casinos. The discussion were essentially on the casino aspect of it, where the finance minister of Goa went into great details about why casinos will need a greater detailing, greater understanding, greater different treatment, and so on. The one thing which I want to highlight to you all first is whether it is horse racing or online gaming or casinos, the common thread which the committee highlighted was they're all part of betting and gaming. In other words, they are essentially gambling. There may be element of skill in it or element of chance in it, but essentially all the 3 are gambling. And even by the existing rules, they're treated so, and also treated uniformly without any differentiation between one and the other and the third. And all of them are taxed at 28%. Now this GOM looked at each one of them, heard the various stakeholders, and took a call that, based on two judgments of the Supreme Court as well. One was on Lotto, and the other one was on, uh, I'll tell you, in both the cases, the Supreme Court, sorry, actionable claims. Sunrise Industries had gone to the court, and on Sunrise Industries, actionable claims being the point at which the tax will have to be levied, was a case with the Supreme Court on which the Supreme Court has upheld the decision. And Lotto was the second one, which was also in Supreme Court. And the verdict is out. All of this confirm the existing laws. All of this confirm and uphold the existing law, which treats all these gaming, varieties of gaming similarly. And the incidence of tax where it is levied also is broadly accepted. Now, this GOM, therefore, after studying the whole thing, went by the fact that that is the only rational way to handle each one of the three. So, in a way, they were in favor of continuing the status quo. So, then came this issue where, even as he presented the report, the Chief Minister of Meghalaya did say that Goa and its minister requested that he place his view even before the entire council, not just the GOM. So he was given an opportunity to speak in front of all the members of the GOM, wherein his request was that the treatment for casinos should be different. And therefore, it was decided, he did give a complete presentation. Therefore, it was decided that Conrad Sangma, the chair of that GOM, will once more hear Goa. And even as this decision was taken, it was felt, some of the members of that GOM felt that if there is a window for casinos to be heard again, let horse riding also be heard again, let online games be also heard again. We've allowed that, but with a condition that by July 15th, the report should be back again with us. So the council will then have a look at it. And as a result, we have accepted that the council will meet on this GOM's agenda. And one more, which I'll elaborate a bit later. On this GOM's agenda and one more, either on the 1st of August of this year or in the first week of August. So for reconsidering the Conrad Sangma report, after they meet up with Goa and other stakeholders, the three ministers, they will submit the report by July 15th, and the council will meet again to take that on board, consider that in the first week of August. So I come to the third GOM, which is on IT related matters, which was headed by the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Tarun, do you want to elaborate on that? IT related. The fourth I'll conclude and then Tarun can take on, is on the gold, movement of gold, where Kerala's minister headed the GOM and he's given the report. Essentially, there was this discussion about movement of gold, whether the number, the Aadhaar card and of the transporter will have to be given, who will take it from one area within the state to another, and so on. So now on the basis of the recommendation given by that committee, it will be left to the state to decide whether they'll take the number, the Aadhaar card or whatever of those vehicles which move. taking precious, because it also has a serious security related consideration. So we've gone by the report submitted by Kerala. So these were the four on which IT matter. Again, Tarun can elaborate. The fifth one was on compensation cess. A few states before lunch today said that they would like the compensation to continue for some time. Even as a few other states said, yes, it is a question of coming out of the pandemic, but yet we need to have states also stand on their own. How long can this go on, and so on. Post lunch, some other states also wanted to come and join. We thought by lunch it was all over. But when most states wanted to join in, we went in for an hour after lunch, and they were broadly uh, statements being to the sense of compensation can be continued, if not for 5 years, at least for a few years. So they were that kind of a input on the compensation cess. So overall, in sum and substance, this is what happened between yesterday and today. Let Tarun expand on the GOM on IT. Also, we'll get into some specifics, post which, of course, you're welcome to ask questions.
Thank you, ma'am. The other GOM which the FM was mentioning is on IT reforms that have made some recommendations on further improvement in the GSTN and use of AI and ML uh, to ensure that we have a better data to for compliance purposes. As also there is a feeling that there are issues which we have not been able to settle with regard to fake invoice bills, some companies coming up suddenly showing some spike and then vanishing. So there were about 6 aspects that were taken up by the GOM in the first place, and they have made very specific recommendations as to what the GSTN ought to do in this regard. And uh, in the sense that, for example, on the registration, risk-based models will be developed where the risky people, there'll be a greater check on them before the registration process itself. So there were these kind of five or six recommendations which have been accepted, and now the GSTN will work on them, and in due course will come up with these utilities so that we are able to further use the GSTN network, the AI ML utilities that they'll develop to ensure that we have even better compliance than what we already have. It was also felt that the GSTN has done a commendable job in terms of providing information and building utilities, and the compliance has actually gone up, which is also visible in the higher revenues that we are getting on month basis. But now what more needs to be done? So this is some kind of a permanent GOM which will keep giving these suggestions to the GSTN through the council, and the GSTN will keep implementing them. You want to speak about it?
Opening the floor for question answer. First from Chandigarh group. I will rotate the question from Chandigarh and Delhi parallel. Please from Chandigarh, request from Chandigarh group. Anyone? Meghna. Oh, but no one raised. No, from Chandigarh. From Chandigarh. Okay, you are there. Please. Give to, Mike. Mike, please, in the central row. Please introduce first.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vijay Roy from Tribune. So my question is, you mentioned about rate rationalization. So when the committee is likely to give a submit report, is there any timeline?
The committee has been given an extension of 3 months. So we expect that by that time they'll be able to further deliberate on that and give us their recommendations, which can be taken to the council meeting.
Second, Meghna, first row.
Ma'am, Meghna Mittal from ET Now. You said this additional agenda of extension of GST compensation cess that was raised was discussed. Is the center going to discuss it amongst themselves and then get back to the states on this, firstly? And secondly, all the rate decisions that have been announced, by when will it be implemented?
Well, I've heard, as I said, some states speak. All of us have heard them. At this stage, I can just only report that much. And on the, yes.
Because the center and states have to coordinate for the rate or the exemptions and the other aspects. So 18th of July has been fixed, the date on which we would be implementing that.
Any question from Chandigarh group? Your turn. Or please, a second. A mid one. Please introduce.
Hello, I'm Ankush Kohli from Z Punjab, Haryana, Himachal. As Harpal Chima, Finance Minister of Punjab, also participated in the council meet. What did he demanded for the Punjab?
Well, he was one among the states which wanted the compensation cess extended.
Okay.
That was
And my second question is this, that as apps, you're talking about as 28% GST is to be considered for the apps which shows characteristics of gambling. Is this only for that apps which shows characteristic of gambling or all online apps?
Yes, it was for online games. Whichever app promotes online games will be, and that anyway is now going to be reconsidered. And by 15th of July, they'll give a report.
Shashir from Delhi.
Oh, there was somebody else from.
I will come back,
Chandigarh.
rotate.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
rotating.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am. Shishir here. Ma'am, my question is that when you are going for doing away with exemptions and also IDS thing, so rates of many of the items will go up. Considering the rate of inflation is very high, so what kind of inflationary impact you are seeing?
First thing, let me say before I'll allow Tarun to expand on. See, inflation is not only your, mine, or any particular state's concern. All ministers who were there are aware of it. They're all looking at the system, keeping that in mind. So decisions taken by the council are not as though are being taken in isolation. So I want the friends in the media to please realize it's a good question to ask, but elected representatives who are part of the GST council are fully conscious of it when they take their decision on it.
Mid row. Mike, please take mic.
I am Sajan Sharma from Arth Prakash newspaper and channel. My question is, how many states want this compensation cess to be extended?
I don't know whether I counted.
There are about 12, 13 states that spoke on this issue. One can't say that all of them actually asked. Some of them actually said that we have to work on systems to wean ourselves away and not be dependent only on the GST compensation cess. But if you want, there were about maybe 16, 17 states who spoke in total.
My second question relating to this is, GST के लिए अभी जो compensation है, उसके लिए कितने states जो हैं अभी मांग रहे हैं अभी आगे?
वही तो उसका जवाब दिया ना, कुल मिलाकर के 16 स्टेट्स ने बात किया कॉम्पनसेशन के विषय के ऊपर. उनमें से ऐसे 3-4 स्टेट्स भी थे जो बोले कि आखिर हम सब अपने आप के पैर पर खड़े होने का भी सीखना चाहिए वगैरह. सो 16 में 16 के 16 नहीं मांगे, मगर 16 बात किए कॉम्पनसेशन के इश्यू पर.
Next.
मैम सॉरी, सेकंड क्वेश्चन इज कि जो जीएसटी का उनका पैसा है ऑलरेडी जो कि रुका हुआ है, वो पैसा स्टेट्स का अभी हम कब तक जारी कर देंगे?
किसका रुका हुआ है?
पंजाब का जैसे इशू रहा है,
क्या रुका हुआ है?
जीएसटी का जो पूरा पैसा
नहीं, जीएसटी का कौन सा पैसा?
तो हाफ स्टेट को बियर करना है और हाफ जो है सेंट्रल।
वो ऑटोमेटिकली जब कलेक्शन होता है मशीन के द्वारा ही हो जाता है जी। उसमें मैं और तरुण बैठ करके इनको रोको उनको दो नहीं करते।
Next.
ओके।
मैं आपको ये बताना चाहूंगा कि जीएसटी कॉम्पनसेशन
नहीं, he didn't ask about compensation. GST पैसा he said.
जीएसटी का पैसा, ओके।
Next.
Compensation he didn't ask.
Next, Timsi from Delhi.
Regarding the compensation, since you said that around 12 to 13 states asked for an extension, some asked for 2 years, some asked for 5 years. Is there any concrete solution that the sector has worked out? Because the window is expiring on 30th June, and we heard a few state FMs say that maybe center would like to speak to the PM or take a call at the highest political level and then come back with a possible solution. So is there a solution to their demands, or
If there was one, I would have told you even at the beginning, right?
A gentleman from the third row. Apartment.
Siddharth from Money Control. I had a question regarding the cess that's been over the weekend was extended, notified that in March 2026. The amount which is likely to be collected under cess is going to be in excess of what's been borrowed over the last couple of years, 2.7 lakh crores or so. What happens to the difference since it's an excess? What happens to, is there any concrete idea as to what happens to that money? Because it's in a bit of a gray area of, it seems.
It's not in a gray area. That has been discussed in the GST Council, even when it was decided that we'll borrow and pay. And the law allows you to pay for the compensation which is collected through the cess for 5 full years. And for the 5 full years, therefore, the amount borrowed will have to be repaid, and therefore the extension of the cess till March 26. And now, therefore, the amount collected. I mean, it's very quick and smart and very sharp of you to tell me that it is going to be in excess of collection, in excess of the borrowing. Collection is going to be in excess of the borrowing. Let's see. After all, it's the money which belongs to the council. No one person is going to be able to take a neat decision on what happens to the excess. The council will decide what should happen to the excess as and when that arises.
Shirimi.
Yeah, Shrimi Chaudhary from Business Standard. Ma'am, I needed two clarity. One, apart from GOM interim report, Fitment Committee also suggested certain rate revision and clarity on the services part. So when we could see and
You will get the
expect
details now. Some
that is also
some
accepted by the council?
yes, yes. If I have to answer that in a broader sense, in the last 2 days meeting, everything was accepted except that one on the casinos, which has gone back for re-looking at. So yes, the fitment committee's suggestions before the council were considered by the GST council in full, and more or less all of them have been accepted.
Ma'am, one last clarity, ma'am, on the virtual digital asset, Fitment Committee suggested that it should be given to Haryana and Karnataka. So
What should be given to Haryana and Karnataka?
the detailed study of virtual digital asset in context of GST, it was suggested to give it to Haryana and Karnataka.
Was it?
So, ma'am, this.
It's a question?
No, ma'am, I'm just asking if that's the.
No, if it was taken like that, a call, I would have reported.
This has been reported
Any
in the
from-
media, so you should
from
ask the
Delhi.
media.
Whoever reported it, please answer, Shrimi. But
Ma'am, that's the Fitment Committee suggestion, actually.
no, it may be a fitment committee suggestion, but I'm not aware. I didn't bring it to the council, nor was there a discussion. But if there was a discussion in some fitment committee somewhere,
Chandigarh group. Please. I take mic.
As you stated, ma'am, there was
I can't
Please,
hear you.
please take mic.
as it was stated that there were 16 or 17 states which demanded for this revenue compensation period should be extended beyond June 30. So is there any decision on this? What is going to the fate of this thing? This is just the clarity which we wanted.
I've answered that question with clarity.
Is this going to be extended or not? That is what.
He's just answered that question to two of your colleagues. Kindly listen to what is happening.
Hi, Ma'am, Girish this
Next,
side.
Garish from Delhi.
Ma'am, Girish from Mint. Ma'am, since the GOM on systems has recommended so many measures to improve the efficiency of the GST system, would you still be needing a major rate rationalization exercise which will affect the consumers? Because anyway, if tax evasion is being addressed and revenue buoyancy is there, consumers could probably be
But
spared.
Girish, I'm surprised you are asking this question here. See, it's one thing for the technology to correct any anomalies or any kind of inefficiency, and therefore have a bearing, positive bearing on the collection.
Anyone?
But,
No,
Malhotra,
sorry.
if you don't
Sorry,
mind.
sorry. Sorry.
But if you would definitely be cognizant of the fact that the revenue neutral rate, even by the RBI study, has been breached to the disadvantage of the system. Where it was 15.5, which was agreed to be the revenue neutral, it had already come down to 11.8 or 6 or something. That requires a correction, because if you're directly linking with buoyancy and then saying this doesn't have to be corrected, the kind of refunds which are going because of inversion, which is getting corrected now, there will be a similar concern about revenue neutrality, as a result of which, again, you're sitting over potential tax yielding points which have been left there. That's not efficiency of system. So rate rationalization, if it results in an increase, is also making up for, as in when it happens, not today, is also making up for the kind of inefficiencies which have appeared now, or the collateral of which is being borne by some other activities in that value chain. So those are sitting quiet, waiting for us to do the correction, because the collateral of having come down from the neutral rate has hit some sectors. And at a time when we are looking at wanting people to come and invest in every element of the value chain, some are not drawing investments. Only because we've done this in terms of, look at the rate, bring it down, without fully assessing the bearing on the whole system. So rate rationalization is something which the GOM is definitely looking at it from this point of view also.
Chandigarh group. Anyone? Anchal from Delhi.
Anchal from Indian Express. Ma'am, two questions. One on the decisions regarding rate inversion correction and withdrawal of exemptions. Is there an assessment of the revenue impact of it? I mean, we'll be saving on the refund outflow and all. And second question is about casinos. You said gaming was classified as seen as gambling. So is casinos or horse racing. But were there valuation issues? What was the concerns about casinos taxing it at
Yes.
28%?
The concern about taxation in casinos were several, particularly when it came from the Minister Goa, which has all in its entirety been taken up by the GOM. They've looked into it. If I can take one as an example, one item as an example, not to elaborate on each one of it, is when people go pay money at the counter, at the point of entry into a casino, they pay up some money and get the chips for it, which are tokens like with which you play. The question on which there were a difference of view was, if you bought chips for 10,000 rupees and went into the casino, used it for different games, different gambling routines in some sequence, and also then had some food, also then allowed your children to enjoy some facilities which are appropriate to them to be given, and also played one or two games, some of which you won, some of which you lost. And when you go back to the counter, for instance, to say, I bought chips worth 10,000, but I have spent only chips worth 8,000, I'm giving you back 2,000. The question was, will he be taxed on the 10,000 or will he be taxed on the 8,000 that he actually ended up spending? There were difference of views on that. Like that, there were also questions of whether individual, once he gets into the casino, the various things that he does at each one of them, where there is a payment made and the bill given, can there be a taxation on it? Because that will help in having varying taxation, varying rate of taxation. For food something, for drinks something, for something else something. But is that going to be possible practically? So things of this nature, which are getting into the details. In fact, the minister from Goa himself said, I've never been to a casino, but because I needed to understand the various ways in which casinos operate, he said he had to go and find out how the casinos and, within the casino, what happens and so on. So it was an elaborate discussion on casinos.
The inverted duty, the inversion which has been corrected, it doesn't mean that if something goes from 5 to 12, that the 7% will come, because inverted duty also has an embedded tax element. So we don't have a very exact estimate, but yes, hopefully we'll have some impact on revenue, but it will not be very, very high. And let me also add this, because each one of you is worried about exemptions. The rates on some of the items have also been reduced in this, which is elaborated in the press note. So you'll also get to know that.
Anyone from Chandigarh group? Please, middle row.
Of the GST automatic transfers to them. But most of time we heard from Punjab government that we are waiting for our installment to come from the center.
Most of the time when they say that, it will be helpful if you can give me specifics of which is that which is waiting. आप जरूर मीडिया है जी, पावरफुल है, आप प्रश्न पूछ सकते हैं उनसे, पूछ करके मुझे बताना कि कौन सा ऐसा वेट कर रहे हैं वो.
Monica first.
Ma'am, I'm Monica from the New Indian Express. Ma'am, I needed clarity whether the issue of covering cryptocurrencies under GST was also taken up in today's meeting.
No.
And ma'am, also there is no clarity whether cryptocurrencies, they come under goods category or services category. So has there any decision been made by the government on this?
No. Last 2 days, the GST, nothing was discussed on this.
Prakash.
मैम मैं आलोक हूँ सीएनबीसी आवाज से. मेरा सवाल है कि छोटे और एमएसएमई कारोबारी काफी लंबे समय से मांग कर रहे थे कि उन्हें भी ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म या ई कॉमर्स में पार्टिसिपेट करने का मौका मिलना चाहिए. उनको लेकर कोई डिसीजन हुआ है जीएसटी काउंसिल में?
हुआ है.
क्या किस तरह से उनको राहत मिलेगी मैम?
ऑनलाइन जो बिजनेस करते हैं उनके जैसे ही ऑफलाइन वाले भी अब से कर पाएंगे. एक आध उसमें डिटेलिंग भी है. Tarun, if you want to explain.
आज के दिन अगर मैं ऑफलाइन करना चाहता हूं, तो अगर मेरा टर्नओवर 40 लाख से कम का है, तो मैं एक स्टेट में, मतलब इंट्रा स्टेट, नॉट इंटर स्टेट बट इंट्रा स्टेट में कर सकता हूं ऑफलाइन में, बिना रजिस्ट्रेशन लिए हुए, और कॉम्पोजिट डीलर्स भी कर सकते हैं. ऑनलाइन को ये व्यवस्था नहीं थी. अगर उनको 2 रुपए का भी करना था तो रजिस्ट्रेशन लेनी पड़ती थी. अब ये फैसला ले लिया है काउंसिल ने कि जो ऑफलाइन में अवेलेबल है वही ऑनलाइन में भी अवेलेबल रहेगा. इंट्रा स्टेट वो कर सकते हैं अगर उनका टर्नओवर 40 लाख से ऊपर नहीं जाता है, और ना केवल एक स्टेट में इंट्रा स्टेट कर सकते हैं, पर एक पैन नंबर एक स्टेट से भी ज्यादा स्टेट में इंट्रा स्टेट, सिर्फ इंट्रा स्टेट, मतलब हरियाणा में हरियाणा का, पंजाब में पंजाब का, यूपी में यूपी का कर सकते हैं, जैसा कि ऑफलाइन में भी अवेलेबल है. तो ये आपने ठीक कहा, जैसे एमएसएमई की बहुत मांग थी इस बात को, तो ये पूरा कर दिया गया है. इसको आईटी में सेटअप करना पड़ेगा, ईसीओस को इंश्योर करना पड़ेगा, एक हमें रिपोर्ट देना पड़ेगा कि कौन लोग इस तरह के हैं. तो इसको हम ये उम्मीद करते हैं कि अगले कुछ महीने में इसका पूरा टेक्नोलॉजी सेटअप कर लेंगे और 1 जनवरी 23 से इसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर देंगे।
Anyone from Chandigarh group? Tarun otherwise.
मैम तरुण शर्मा फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। मैम मेरे दो सवाल हैं। एक है कि जो आप इस मीटिंग में तो वर्चुअल डिजिटल एसेट्स पे डिस्कशन नहीं हुआ, तो क्या हम ओईसीडी की रिपोर्ट का इंतजार कर रहे हैं क्योंकि उन्होंने डिस्कशन पेपर निकाला है, उसके बाद हम वीडीए के जो इकोसिस्टम है उस पर टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर पे काम कर पाए? और दूसरा मैम, क्या जीएसटी टर्मिनल बनाने पे कोई चर्चा इस मीटिंग में हुई? यदि हुई तो कब तक हम इम्प्लीमेंट होते हुए देखेंगे?
आपके पहला प्रश्न का विषय मैंने बोल दी हूं, उसमें और जोड़ने का मुझे कुछ नहीं है। ओईसीडी है, फलना है, जिमका, नो, आई हैव नथिंग मोर टू ऐड ऑन इट। ऑन द ट्राइब्यूनल, yes, there was a discussion. There was a status report, if you may want to say, आज का हालात क्या है और कोर्ट से क्या क्या ओवरऑल, नॉट जीएसटी अलोन, ओवरऑल ट्राइब्यूनल के विषय में क्या क्या आए हैं, इसको हमारे जेएस ने एक प्रेजेंटेशन दिया है। उसके ऊपर चर्चा हुआ, डिटेल के ऊपर क्या क्या है विषय, इसमें हम क्या करना है। इसमें ये निर्णय हुआ है कि एक जीओएम फॉर्म करेंगे हम। अभी उनका कौन कौन मिनिस्टर्स उसमें सदस्य होंगे अभी रेडी नहीं है, वो तय करेंगे आज कल में। और उसका रिपोर्ट भी मैंने पहले आपको सूचित की कि फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ अगस्त में जीओएम दोबारा, आई मीन काउंसिल दोबारा मीट करेगी। उसमें एक रिपोर्ट तो ये गेमिंग, ऑनलाइन गेमिंग, कैसीनोस के ऊपर कॉनराड संगमा जी का रिपोर्ट लेंगे, एक एजेंडा। सेकंड एजेंडा इस ये आजकल में फॉर्म करने वाले ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स इस महीने के अंदर ही उस विषय के ऊपर, ट्राइब्यूनल्स के विषय के ऊपर आपस में चर्चा करके पूरे उसका फाइनल जीओएम का रिपोर्ट देंगे। वो होगा द सेकंड एजेंडा फॉर द फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ अगस्त मीटिंग।
Anyone from Chandigarh? That first.
Hi, I'm Neha Sharma from PTC News. I want to ask because there have been discussion that VAT, जो पेट्रोल और डीजल है, that would be put in, उसको VAT के दायरे में लेके आया जाएगा। So इसके बारे में कोई चर्चा हुई है पूरी
उसको
मीटिंग में?
जीएसटी में लेके
जी
आएगा।
जी जी
नहीं, कुछ चर्चा नहीं।
There is no discussion.
Anuradha.
Ma'am, will you give some more clarity on the GOM and gold movement, the intrastate movement? And second, on this GOM on online gaming and casinos, will there be revision on rate only, or just ironing out of some issues like on what valuation tax should be imposed? Or will it be 28%, or is there need to relook at the rate itself?
The GOM considered all aspects and came with what I've given you briefly as its finding. But then, of course, it's going back to them for the next 15 days. They'll come back on 15th July with their solutions. And on the other one which you asked, on the gold, do you want to explain?
This is an old GOM which was there. Kerala was heading it. So right now there is no requirement of e-way bills for them. So some of the states actually were wanting that. So that has been allowed to the states. So whichever state wants it for intra-state movement. And the minimum that has been kept is 2 lakhs. Otherwise it is 50,000 for the others. For this it is 2 lakhs. And the details that will come in the e-way bill will not disclose the vehicle number for security reasons, and so that has been kept into view. The details will be there in the press note.
Intrastate, ma'am, not interstate.
Intra,
within the state.
INTRA. No, not at all. This is they wanted for compliance, for information.
This is a compliance related matter as to how to handle it. And it was first headed by the previous finance minister of Kerala. Now, after the changeover, the new finance minister took charge. And therefore, although it has been there since 2019, I think, They have come with the report now. It was more a question of, for security reasons, should we disclose the number in the eBay bill, the name of the driver, the Aadhaar card, the car registration number, and so on. But which is only for within any one state's movement. And that is why the decision taken was, let the state of that particular area decide.
Anyone from Chandigarh first?
Ma'am, when GST was
Please introduce first.
Manoj Kumar from Pioneer. So opposition leaders were lots of questions when we started implementing the GST, but now very few questions are being asked by the opposition leaders. Before few days, in one of the interview, former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha said demonetization was a big scam. What do you say about that?
Next. The last. Yeah.
हेलो मैम, प्रकाश प्रियदर्शी हूँ ईटी नाउ स्वदेश से। मेरा सवाल है कि 2 दिन पहले छत्तीसगढ़ के मंत्री टीएस सिंहदेव ने एक चिट्ठी लिखी है और वो कहा है कि पहले जो जीएसटी काउंसिल में फैसले होते थे वो आपसी सहमति से होते थे, लेकिन अब मेजॉरिटी के आधार पर हो रही हैं और इसकी शिकायत उन्होंने की है। इस पे क्या कहेंगे?
शिकायत कर सकते हैं, जिनको भी चाहिए कर सकते हैं, मगर जीएसटी काउंसिल में निर्णय आज भी सिर्फ एक समय था, which was on lottery related to Kerala, on which the northeastern states were all very worried. Then we took that was also not voting, we took a call on how many states would you want, and so on. उसके अलावा अभी तक कोई भी discussion inclusive of the lockdown period, more amount to be borrowed for compensation, no decision has been taken by majority voting or any of that kind. It has been a collective decision making.
Rahul.
Srivastava from India Today. Ma'am, we saw a very strange contradiction today that on one hand, we found a lot of states opposing any hikes in taxes on items and commodities. On the other hand, a lot of them were complaining that we want that the compensation should come to states should continue. Now, between this, how difficult a task is it for you as a head of the GST Council to even probe the concept of continuation of compensation to states?
Rahul, first thing, there was no opposition to any increase or anything to do with the rate. There was not one. In fact, as was the suggestion given by the fitment, more or less on everything, it was all right, it should go through. In fact, I'm grateful, and I don't want to name and create, unnecessarily interest and curiosity. There were ministers who even said, it should just go into agreement. All of us can agree. There is nothing. They are all very well done reports. And if there's no need for us to get into detailed discussion on point A, point B, point C. And the moment that was said by one minister, at least 3 other ministers came one after the other to say, we agree. We should just go on because they're all nicely presented, reasons and logic explained, and the committee and the groups have done very good work. So that has been the prevailing mood since yesterday morning. So there's never been one voice saying, why are you doing this? Not on any issue. So that be clear. Huh? On compensation, I've answered the question. People have answered.
Prashant.
Prashant from Financial Express. Sir, Madam, the revenue collections have been buoyant in the last 4 or 5 months. It has been around 1.4 lakh crore. It was 1.68 lakh crore in April. So was there any discussion or assessment presented in the meeting how it is going to fare in the remainder of the year and going forward?
No presentation done, but Revenue Secretary at one point in time between one agenda to the other, moving from one GOM report to another GOM, took the opportunity to explain that revenue generation is going on all right because of the various steps which every state has taken. The efficiencies in collection have improved. the kind of plugging of leakages have been done from the states. Every state has actively done. And as a result, he didn't have any slide to show, but he read out the numbers of how much it has improved, how much it is likely to be per month on an average, and so on. There was no discussion on it.
Last question by Vikas.
Hi, ma'am. Vikas Dhoot from the Hindu. Just want to get a sense on the risk-based registration process that we're looking at. When are we looking to implement it? And if you can give us a sort of explanation on how this will work, on what base, what different levels of risk we are looking at. And lastly, how this could affect, say, a startup which has really no major history or background.
Basically, suppose there is a unit which is asking for a registration in a in a state which it doesn't exist and has a good record elsewhere, which is available in GST. And so the risk base will mention that this is fine. Then based on certain other parameters, it may, now the algorithm will have some clauses based on which it will run the algorithm. Suppose there are some addresses, some places which are basically we find in the system that these are actually locations where these kind of fake addresses are being given, or on one address there are 10 which are coming. So all that algorithm will be written. It will not be in the hands of any individual. So it will be run through that. And then on a risk based, that also we are not saying, it's only a little more strenuous in the sense it's like the red channel. You'll come through the red channel and we will actually check whether he exists. And then we will also collect, for example, one of the things that they are saying is that we'll collect the electricity mapping of that person. So it will give us an idea whether that premise does exist also or not. Then the risk parameter will also say if I give an address, say Chandigarh or Mohali, Sector 4 Mohali or Sector 4 or Sector 10 Chandigarh. So it's not an exact address that is there. So I can't go and pinpoint where does it exist. So these are the kind of risk parameters that will come, and that will involve a greater scrutiny of such people at the time of registration. Let me say this, that we have taken a large number of steps, and I think the message is going very loud that this is, we mean business. So some pilots are being undertaken by Gujarat and MP on this aspect, and we will further improve the system.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, we have worked on the timelines in the sense we have asked them to work on and GST and to develop the utilities. It'll take, for various utilities, it'll take between 3 to 6 months, but we'll be doing that.
Thank you
The
very
press
much.
release will give you the details of the rates and so on. And just to add, that first week of August, GST Council, on the invitation of Tamil Nadu Finance Minister, will be held in Madurai.
We will be sharing just within 20-30 seconds in WhatsApp group the press release. Please join us for cup of tea there backside.